Hi everyone, welcome to the Sacred Rainbow Warrior. I normally film on the jetty, but as you can see behind me, it's completely flooded. It's been raining non-stop for days and everything is just completely flooded. You can't even walk on it. Today I'm going to be talking about justice, what actually is justice in this day and age. And I don't mean the kind of justice that we've been taught. I mean, what is real justice, divine justice? This has been a big theme of who I am. It's about, it's what my channel is about, the Sacred Rainbow Warrior. It's about justice. It's what the sword represents. It's what the stag horns represent. To be a true justice warrior, a warrior for justice. And that means being a warrior for love, to fight for love, to stand for love. That's what the stag's all about. I'm sure you've heard the jokes of, what do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. That's the shadow of the deer. Ignorance turning a blind eye. What do you call a deer with no eyes and no legs? Still no idea. Now that relates to the other shadow of the stag, which is stagnation, stillness, unable to stand in the bog, the boggy mud, unable to stand and fight. And this is all linked to justice, and I'm going to go into that. I'm also going to talk about how women, when they're not being mirrored by men, where they don't have a healthy partner in their life, how they go from spirituality or even atheism maybe to religion, to Catholicism or Christianity. So let's dive in. So I've had some huge awakenings in the past 6 years. My spiritual journey started in 2019, but my self-improvement journey started long before that. I come from a lifetime of abuse and always trying to overcome that, but I never found somebody who was able to help me until I met my partner Hazel. And I always, before I met her, I went on an internal self-improvement journey, and I tried as many things as I could. And I never knew what I was looking for until very recently I had the ultimate awakening. I did a video recently about what happens when the walk-in walks out. And I had a big walk-in, like I think I said on the video, in my solar plexus to do with my calling. And then almost immediately, it left. And that was another lesson for me. Luckily, that lesson has happened many times for me, so I didn't take it to heart, but it was upsetting. And then the next day I had, after I made that video about the Earth Star chakra and how to ground your walk-in, I found what I didn't know I'd been looking for all this time, and it was terrifying, really terrifying, and I've been coming to terms with it. After it happened, I started to fall apart. All of the walk-ins that I'd had kind of left, and I felt bare. I felt like a tramp. I felt completely worthless because I discovered something within me, that a hidden memory that turned my world upside down. It was earth-shattering, and it has helped me understand what justice is. So I'm going to take my time with this because it's very sensitive. I'm not going to share what the wound is that I uncovered because I'm not ready yet, and I'm not even sure if I should share it because it's that big. But the days leading after that, I started to have like a small breakdown. I say small because I managed to stop it, but it could have turned into a huge downward spiral of suicide. And what's interesting is that when I uncovered it, I started to remember memories of when I was a child, and these were forgotten memories. I didn't know that I'd forgotten them, that I actually had memories of a child of wanting to kill myself, and I was really shocked at that. And it came through this energy, and I've never felt it like this before, the pure energy of suicide. And what I mean by that is this energy of suicide had come in to teach me something in this moment. This was about 3 weeks ago. And this was the lead up to Samhain, so I've had a really powerful Samhain, I can tell you. The energy of suicide was trying to teach me in a really humble way where I was not living my life, because suicide has such a negative connotation to it, because it's where people take their lives, and it is the distortion of sacrificing the ego. We're not supposed to physically kill ourselves. We're supposed to reclaim our lives, reclaim who we are. And suicide is that stop barrier of saying, stop here. This is where you're not leading your life. But we give it this negative connotation of people killing themselves. But I'm not promoting that at all. I'm promoting life, promoting love. So that was a really big shock for me. And since I met Hazel in 2020, we started. Well, she introduced me to she introduced me. You see all the ripples in the water? I can hear it. I'm just wondering where it's coming from. Must have been a boat. She introduced me to Divine Union. I didn't know what Divine Union was, and she gave me the coding through art, and it started to work through me, and we started to work in Divine Union. Just remember, I've said this many times, we started off as friends. Now we are twin flames. Long story behind that. I'm not going to go into it right now. But one of the things that came in for me was that when I first started my spiritual journey, I didn't believe in a lot. I was baptized against my will when I was 1, and I was put in a Catholic school because my parents wanted me to go to a good school, and the Catholic school in the area was a good school, so they basically essentially lied in a way, and said that they were Catholic or whatever. You have to go to church for a number of months or something to get in, and they put me in a Catholic school. And so that programming was in me when I started my spiritual journey, and it took me years to get it out of me. But one of the things which I was really shocked at my own behavior is that I was readily accepted the idea that we can talk to spirits, things that we can't see. I call it animism. And when I met Hazel, this was something she was naturally good at, but didn't acknowledge because she came from a family of atheists, which is interesting because it's almost that's also a religion. To not believe is also a religion, which comes from the church in a way, because it is dogma. It's all dogma. And when I have to take this slowly. It's very big energy. So one of the things that I was surprised in my behavior, that I was able to believe in speaking spirits. And even though Hazel came from an atheist family, she was able to channel spirits. And she told me some wild stories of years before I met her. She used to wake up in the middle of the night just channeling Balthazar, and I was like, "Who's Balthazar?" It's like, "Oh, he was one of the 3 kings that welcomed Jesus." And I was like, "Oh my god!" and and to cut a long story short, I had this really strong intuition to speak with Anubis, and I don't know why, I just felt this really strong urge. And so on our journey, we started speaking to him quite regularly, and we built a really great relationship with him. And there's many misconnotations about what he represents, but essentially he's the god of divine union. He's the god of marriage, sacred marriage through balance and justice. And one of the reasons I'm making a video today is made a reconnection with him this morning, and he's such a great being. He's just fantastic, gives the most grounded advice, and he's a brother. He feels like a true brother to me. And it's all about justice. Love is about justice, and doing this kind of work is about justice. And my channel is about justice. If you're not sure why I come on this channel and speak and share these lessons, is I'm sharing my journey of justice. Because essentially what I'm doing is, when I'm not making videos, I'm clearing out the parts of me which resist or push back from me creating the most successful life I can ever imagine for myself, beyond my imagination, beyond my expectations, in love with my partner in divine union. Now, divine union gets thrown around, sacred marriage, hieros gamos, all these things. But what it really means is, it's the prophecy of the sacred rainbow warrior. It's about wholeness within. And the prophecy of the sacred rainbow warrior is the sacred rainbow body. The 7 colors, the 7 chakras merging heaven and earth, right? I did it around the head, I meant the whole body. So I've spoken about this many times, there's 17 chakras, there's 8 below and 8 above so there's 8 below that lead up to the heart and 8 above from the heart, right? So the 9th chakra, 9th dimensional consciousness is the heart. Now, this is where it gets interesting about justice, right? Because, and I've done videos on this in the past about divine union. You have your partner on one side and you on the other, and these scales of justice. And when you walk away from each other, it's more difficult to balance and it rocks the boat. But the closer you come together in love and union, the scales become perfectly balanced and you come into divine union. Now, to come back to this wound that I uncovered, I want justice. I want justice. And I don't think that as a society we understand what that is anymore. But I do. I understand what justice is because I've had to seek my own justice within. And there have been times where I wanted to blame someone for what has happened to me, but I know that through my journey, I have chosen certain parts of it and played my part. But this wound, there are certain things that happen to us when we're children that are completely out of our control, and we are left with our caregivers, and we're supposed to be protected by our caregivers. And what happens when we're not, when we're too young to defend ourselves, and when it's out of our control, I think that's enormous injustice, and I don't see how, in a way, we do play a part at a soul level, but really at a human level, we can't defend ourselves at that age. We need to be nurtured by our caregivers to when we're an adult, where we're strong enough to cook for ourselves, clean ourselves, speak for ourselves, follow our dreams, do all of these things for ourselves that need to be nurtured. And that's a very difficult job, being a parent. But what I've learned about justice and my journey is, each time I uncover a new wound, I look for justice. How has this happened to me? Why did I choose that? Who did this to me? Etc. etc. And we can always have someone to blame, and most people, including myself, used to blame the darkness. And that's true. There's some responsibility there. And when I mean darkness, I mean, well, you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, it always, 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 always will come back to you, which means if you're trying to blame someone for a wound or something that happened to you, nothing's going to happen to that wound. You have to take responsibility for it. And this is why I said, I don't know if I've said this on video before, but I've definitely said this to my partner. What would God do? If you were God, what would God do? Right? And this, obviously, I'm not religious. This doesn't come from a religious perspective. This comes from a divine perspective of following God's divine will, right? What would God do? Well, God would say, okay, this is my mess. I created this, so I'm going to take responsibility for it. And this is how I work. Take responsibility for it. However, what happens, like I said, when what has happened to you is out of your control, there still needs to be justice. And so I come on YouTube to share the lessons and wisdom that I've learned after embodying what I've overcome through my own form of justice, which to me, justice is taking responsibility, healing it, overcoming it, and building my life in order to make my greatest life come true. But when there is a true injustice, where something really, somebody has, how do I put this in words? Somebody has taken something from you, very dear to you. Somebody has taken something from your life that is very dear to you, and you had no control over it. How does justice come into it? Well, I don't believe in imprisonment. I don't. I think because even it doesn't matter how horrible the crime is. I don't believe in imprisonment. What's worse than imprisonment? I mean, in some ways, imprisonment is they kind of get away with it. They may lose their freedom, but they're still there. Their justice isn't being delivered. To me, justice is acknowledgement. Number one, acknowledgement, and two, responsibility, and three, um, well, it's part of responsibility actually. So acknowledgement and responsibility. Now, what is acknowledgement? Acknowledgement is I did that. I'm sorry, I did that. I did that. I did that. Yeah, that's that other person saying, yes, I did that. Okay, that's step one, number one for me for justice. Number two, responsibility. What is responsibility? Responsibility is taking back the emotional weight, the darkness, and working through it, taking responsibility for it. So if you know, how do I? What example can I use? Let's just use. I'll use an extreme example. Right, there's been a lot of mass shootings in America, and there's been a lot going on as well in the UK, stabbings and stuff. If you or I was one of those perpetrators that had killed those people, and you hadn't killed yourself, and you're in prison, right? To me, justice would be sitting opposite every one of those individuals who, say, for example, that person had killed children, sitting opposite their parents, their mother, their father, and listening to the pain. That's, to me, that's justice, that's responsibility. And then sitting with all of that pain, step one, right? So that's acknowledgement, is saying, yes, I did that. And I suppose there's another part to this as well, is admitting remorse. I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry. I feel terrible about that. Right. But the justice comes with taking responsibility for that inner work. So that person first has to deal with what they did by sitting with those people and listening to how much pain they've caused. Right. And then they need to go inside and see the guilt, the remorse, the pain, all of that horrible stuff that they've done to themselves. That to me is justice. That's real justice. And that's what real criminals escape by going to prison. They escape real justice. That's not justice, imprisoning people. It's not. And this is how I see the whole world changing. This is how I see the future of justice. It has to change. I don't know how that changes, because it will require professional space holding. And yeah, we can't have people running away from justice. I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying I don't believe in imprisonment. But my journey has been about overcoming justice, overcoming the bad things that have happened to me by seeking divine justice, by coming into balance with myself. And this is the power of healing. This is the power of acknowledgement. I'll try to give an example of something I've been through, where I've sought my own justice. I'm going to pause and think of one and come back on this. Okay, something really quickly came to me. So if you listen to the podcast, my episode 13 on the wasp, right? I always talk about this because it was so profound for me. But the first ever spirit animal that came to help me heal in a mushroom ceremony I was on my own actually. I was in my bedroom, and I'd been snowboarding and I landed on my shoulder. I think it was his left shoulder actually, yeah. And it was all inflamed, and I couldn't lift it above. I couldn't lift it above there. It was so painful. And I worked with the medicine to say, please, can you help me heal this? Because I'd been to physio and all of this stuff, and they were saying, oh, we're going to have to operate. And I was like, no way, you're not operating on my shoulder. I know what happens with operations. No way. And I believe in healing. And so I worked with the medicine, and it was so profound. I was lying there. I remember my mother was in the kitchen at the time, and this massive giant wasp spirit came into the room, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god. And it landed on my chest, and I was like, okay, I welcome your medicine. And it said, ring a ding ding, let the sting in. And this, when the wasp stings, it allows you that it gives the poison, which is the truth, right? And what happened was my shoulder started to hurt when the wasp landed on me, and it started to show me this vision linked to the pain. Because whenever you're trying to heal something, you have to go through the pain. This is what I do. You feel the pain. It's like if you ever run too much in trainers and you straighten your feet when you're lying down in bed, you might get cramp in your arches. If you feel that pain, instead of going, oh, that's too painful, if you feel that pain, the pain is released. So that's how you heal. This is how we heal, right? So I went into the pain, and I saw a memory from when I was about 3 or 4 years old, where my cousin took me to an outdoor swimming pool, and she was babysitting for me. And the pain started to get worse, and then I started to understand that her energy um, towards my mother was being imprinted in my left arm, and it was jealousy. She'd always wanted a son, and she ended up with a daughter, and she was jealous of my mother. And my mother had a lot going for her, and that energy of jealousy was passed into me as a little child because I was so vulnerable and trusting. And so what happened was the wasp said I had some a big piece of rose quartz above my head on my bed, and the wasp said, put the rose quartz on your heart and ask the pain, the poison that had been left in there by my cousin, to come into my heart. And it went into my heart and into the stone, and then it told me to put that stone in some water, and I could really feel it, like there was this really dark energy in the stone. So I did that, and as soon as I felt it leave my heart and into the stone, I went like that on my arm, whoosh, and I was like, oh my god, it's healed instantly, instant healing. That's how to work with medicine. And then this was the middle of winter, I believe it was October and November a few years ago, and I went into the kitchen, and there was a freaking wasp in the kitchen. And my mum was like, what? Why is there a wasp in here? And I explained the story to her about my cousin. She's like, yeah, that's true. She was jealous of me. And then just as we were talking, the wasp went whoosh into the bulb and went bzz, bzz, and just died. I was like, wow, that's so profound. And I told my mum about it, and we would just looked at each other like this, like, wow, is this really happening? And it was really profound to connect with my mother on that level. It was really beautiful. And that's justice. That's justice. So going into the pain, that wasn't my pain. My cousin put that in me, but I had to take responsibility for it, right? To go in and heal it. And this is what my whole journey is about, right? I'm going in all the time. I'm I'm taking responsibility for the wounds, and then I come on here and I share it so that other people know how to do that, and that they're not alone. And I'm not seeing anyone else do this. And because nobody knows how to do it. And it's not that I found this out on my own. I did this work with my partner, Hazel. You need two to do this. And I said at the beginning, I would talk about how women go from spirituality to religion. And I learned this through Hazel as well, is that we can't do this alone. We can't. It has to be done together. And especially working with the opposite sex, I've said this so many times, it's so incredibly powerful. I did 4 weeks with Hazel, was like doing a year on my own. It is so profound. And what I learned through Hazel was that when a woman tries to go deep on her own, there's only so far she can go, because as far as you go deep, you have to go high, and it's the same in the masculine. As far as you go high, you have to go deep, and you need the opposite sex. So the feminine is safer, more earthly, in the deep, and the opposite for the masculine. The masculine has wings like an angel. He feels safer in the sky, not on the earth, and this is part of the masculine avoidance. And so we did this swap where um, we held each other. I held Hazel in the heights, and she held me in the depths, deep and divine. And when a woman tries to go that deep without a man, and I'll speak what happens for the masculine. When a woman tries to go deep without a man, she doesn't have that anchor, and so when she goes up high into the divine, and she doesn't have that that grounded anchor, she'll meet Jeshua. Jeshua will meet women to say, you don't have that man in your life for um, divine union, so I'm going to mirror you as your love. I'm going to mirror you as that which you are seeking in a man. I'm going to mirror the purity of love in you, in your masculine. Now, the problem is that a lot of women that we've encountered, that we've seen, they get brainwashed into believing that Jeshua is associated with the church, with Christianity and Catholicism, but he's not. That's not true. It's not true. He's a savior, yes. He's a shaman, yes. He's a warrior, yes. He was a lover, yes. He was a king. He didn't create a religion. He didn't create a religion. He created his own self-belief, and that's what people followed. People didn't understand that their own belief, their own true religion of self-belief is within, and so they chose to follow the cult of church. And this is where people, especially women, leave their bodies and are masterminded and manipulated to follow religion, and they're brought in by priests saying, "Oh yes, you need to be with God, my child. You need to be with Jesus, my child. You need to read the Bible, my child. You need to make prayers to God, my child. You need to give this up, my child. You can no longer be a witch, my child." All this nonsense. None of it's true because it's not grounded in truth, and the truth only comes from the earth. Only comes from the love within us, but that has to be grounded in the earth. And this is why the feminine is so important and so powerful, and it's really important for the masculine. And so I'll talk for the opposite. And this happened on my journey. What happens when I tried to go deep? When I tried to go too deep, I got lost in avoidance and despair, suicidal thoughts, all that kind of stuff. And what did that do to me? It created enormous amounts of density. It felt like I was carrying the world on my shoulders, and it felt like I had gone too deep into the mud. I spoke about stagnation at the bottom, at the beginning, but being in the lower realms without enough love and light in your heart to help you anchor in your heart without the feminine is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. And we found this out the hard way. We didn't know what we were doing until we learned the lessons of how to do it. When we did know what we were doing, it's because we slowed down enough to feel. And for me, it was to listen to my partner Hazel, to listen to the feminine, to say, no, not this way, this way. But she's a fantastic anchor of love, and the masculine can easily get lost in the mind, and the mind does not lead the way. It has to be connected to the heart. And so when the feminine tries to go up into the heights, it has to be the high heart. But what happens is they leave the heart without the masculine anchor, and to find a pure man is so difficult, especially at this level of work. And what happens is the feminine goes into the mind, and this is how I've spoken about this many times. The woman goes into the mind, she goes into fear because of the fear receptors of the reptilian part of the brain. And if a person doesn't have a if a woman doesn't have a strong mind and knows how to handle that, that can lead to being committed to an asylum. And this is very common for women who come into their shamanism. If they don't, when they meet a higher power and they're not anchored in love by the masculine within or without outside, then that can lead to insanity. And insanity is a distortion, a hijack of the hive mind through the masculine brain within the feminine. And essentially what it is, it's an enormous gaslight of the feminine energy. And I can tell you gaslight is one of the most destructive forces that a woman can feel in her heart, because to gaslight a woman is to gaslight her reality, and to gaslight a woman's reality is to gaslight her love. And there's nothing worse than that. To have your love gaslit means that you essentially are being told that you are not worthy and that you do not exist, that your existence is not worthy, and that you are an outcast. And so that's what sends women loopy. Profoundly dark, profoundly deep, but these are the truths that people are not acknowledging. I was listening to a channeling from Melchizedek. I need to learn how to pronounce this. The King of Salem. I was listening to a channeling, and he was speaking about the free will being a gift of humanity, but it being misused. And I can really feel that. I took my free will to heal myself, but a lot of people are using their free will to go deeper into commoditization and consumerism, deeper into greed, further and further away from their souls, to the point where their soul's like, where are you going? This is just an experience, come back to me. And they've forgotten where their souls are. They've forgotten that they have a soul. And people are selling their souls, and it's really getting out of hand. Really getting out of hand. It's very difficult at the moment. And the people who are doing the work are having to suffer that, because there's so many people not doing the work. There's so many people avoiding justice, avoiding their own justice. But as a person who has done the work and is doing the work, is living the work and integrating the work, because I want to make my dreams come true and because I want to be in service to others, I can tell you that it's not as difficult as you think it is. It's actually really good fun. If you become devoted to it and you see it as fun, it's life changing. It's amazing. That's what I did with my partner. We did it every day for at least 8 hours straight, 1,000 days in a row, and I'm not exaggerating. At least 1,000 days, and that's because we were dedicated and we were devoted. Because for some reason we both had a drive as part of our purpose, our divine purpose. We both had this drive to heal, to overcome the things which were preventing us from being ourselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is divine justice. To overcome everything that is trying to stop us from remembering who we are. And this is one of the main reasons why we're here. This is the prophecy. To remember who we are, to remember what love is. To remember what love truly is, what love means to us individually, what it means to us in relations, in family, and what does it mean in the collective? What does love mean? And how is love going to evolve? Everybody's waiting for the awakening. The more work you do now, the greater your awakening will be, the more power you have, because true power is not money, it's not influence, it's not sex, it's not slavery, it's not control, it's love. And you have to find out what that means for you personally by taking the journey. But I wanted to clarify for myself what my channel was about, because I was like, what am I about? I'm about justice. That's what I'm about. I'm about justice through healing. And what happens when we don't find that justice inside? We have to find that justice on the outside, because part of the prophecy is doing the inner work and then bridging it to the outside. That's what this sacred human body is, the rainbow body. It's the rainbow bridge from earth to sky, from sky to earth. When we get downloads, we earth them. When we get uploads, we get these downloads and earth uploads that we meet in the heart. It's all about sovereignty, reclaiming our sovereignty. You can't do that without being grounded, because you have the root chakra, and I've said this before, and the crown chakra. These are what make up sovereignty. But if you don't have soil for your roots, then you can't land. The walk-ins can't land. You cannot land. Your innate cannot land. Your true power cannot land properly and stay in your body because it doesn't have that safety of the golden light in the darkness, the soil, inner earth, Gaia, our mother, the true nurturance. In the new earth, we were going to be nurtured by love. I had this incredible thought, right? Why do cats, right? Cats, dogs, animals, why do they keep their muscle mass but humans don't? It's because we don't feed our bodies with love. And in this new realm, when we are fully present in our bodies, because most of us are out of our bodies, this is the whole healing journey I've been on with my partner. When most of us come into our bodies in full presence of who we are, we not only will we keep our body mass, but we'll be stronger. And we'll probably have to eat less because I'll be feeding my body with love. And I've felt this many times, but I haven't been able to fully integrate it yet because I am still grounding. Because grounding is such a monumental task. Oh wow! Hello. The robin landed right above my head. So the robin is about witnessing, about companionship, and God is my witness. There you go. That's what comes in. Anyway, I think this is really brilliant wisdom to share. Justice is what we're all after, if you really think about it. And this is only going to grow for me. Justice. What does that mean for you? Let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share my videos. I really want to get this work out there, so thank you for listening. And I hope you had a wonderful summer. Ciao for now.